What if the biggest Christian divisions were never driven by belief alone? That sounds impossible. Yet, every lasting fracture appeared after authority and wealth expanded together. The surprising part is that theology often became the language of conflicts already fueled by power. So what changed that made faith suddenly worth fighting over? The answer began when Christianity gained imperial protection instead of surviving persecution. Suddenly, bishops managed valuable property, legal privileges, and public influence that earlier generations never possessed. That unexpected success created prizes people could compete for. But could one growing institution keep every region equally satisfied? Not for long. Wealthy churches control land, donations, and influential appointments while emperors expected unity across the empire. A bishop could now shape politics as well as belief, making every theological disagreement far more expensive. The first permanent break would reveal exactly how dangerous that combination had become. That moment arrived at the Council of Chalcedon in 451, where bishops defined Christ's nature in language many churches refused to accept. The ruling became official, yet rejection spread across Egypt and neighboring regions. If this comparison surprised you, leave a comment and a like. But why did resistance become so determined instead of fading away? For many Egyptian Christians, Chalcedon arrived not as a neutral theological ruling, but as an order backed by Constantinople. Imperial officials influenced episcopal appointments, collected taxes through regional administrations, and punished communities that rejected approved bishops. Resistance therefore protected both a Christological tradition and local autonomy, turning Egypt into the clearest proof that enforced unity could create permanent separation. Beyond Egypt stood a five-center system that looked balanced only on parchment. Alexandria supplied scholarship, Antioch claimed apostolic antiquity, Jerusalem carried sacred prestige, and the two imperial capitals gained access to courts, armies, and wealth. Because jurisdiction, donations, and legal appeals increasingly followed political rank, the Pentarchy did not prevent rivalry. It concentrated power until Rome and Constantinople faced each other directly. Contests now narrowed to two incompatible models of church government. Roman bishops grounded final jurisdiction in succession from St. Peter, while Constantinople argued that major patriarchs should govern through councils and that the imperial capital deserved equal privileges. Disputes over appeals, missionary territories, and bishop appointments made compromise costly. The Filioque controversy later supplied the theological language for an authority struggle already embedded in institutions. That balance finally collapsed in 1054. Mutual excommunications became the public symbol, yet they merely exposed decades of distrust over authority, tradition, and jurisdiction. Surprisingly, many believers never imagined the separation would become permanent. So what transformed a religious dispute into a lasting economic divide? The answer reached far beyond doctrine. Vast church estates, customs revenue, trade routes, and regional taxation gave both sides powerful financial incentives to defend their independence. Wealth protected influence, and influence protected wealth, which hidden practice later convinced millions that reform could no longer wait. As papal influence expanded across Western Europe, more rulers questioned how much authority should rest in one office. Control over appointments, property, and political alliances increasingly flowed toward Rome. Ironically, stronger centralization created stronger resistance. The next flashpoint appeared where faith and fundraising collided. An indulgence certificate made an invisible spiritual benefit look like a purchasable object. Official teaching separated forgiveness from reduced temporal punishment, but some preachers used simpler fundraising promises. Because campaign revenues supported church projects, including St. Peter's Basilica, reformers could present a sealed document as material evidence of spiritual authority entangled with money. Printing carried Luther's Wittenberg dispute far beyond the university. Cheap pamphlets reached clergy, merchants, students, and princes who shared his criticism for different reasons. Some sought theological reform, others wanted relief from papal payments or control of church property. Each new edition widened the coalition and made reconciliation more difficult. Luther challenged the system, but princes saw another opportunity. Keeping church lands meant keeping taxes, courts, and political leverage inside their own territories. That unexpected alliance turned a religious protest into a constitutional shift across the Holy Roman Empire. But once rulers chose different paths, could Europe ever become one church again? Unity did not return. Cities, kingdoms, and churches began adopting different confessions, each building its own institutions, clergy, and legal traditions. A movement that many expected to fade instead became a permanent European reality. Yet the most surprising consequence was still ahead, because agreement inside Protestantism proved even harder to preserve. Protestant unity soon divided over where final authority belonged. Lutheran churches retained formal liturgy, Reformed communities emphasized preaching and discipline, and Anglicanism preserved bishops under royal control. These settlements also redistributed property, offices, and local income, replacing one centralized structure with several competing religious and political centers. Each fracture looked different, yet the same forces kept returning. Belief mattered, but authority decided who ruled, while wealth determined what institutions could survive. Political power repeatedly amplified theological disagreements into lasting separations. Could those turning points have unfolded differently if critical decisions had changed? Some historians argue earlier reforms might have reduced tension before divisions hardened. Others point out that empires, taxation, rival rulers, and competing institutions had already pushed conflict beyond simple compromise. Once faith became tied to political survival, peaceful solutions grew far harder to sustain. That leaves one final question. The evidence points to a balanced conclusion. Theology shaped convictions, but political authority and financial control repeatedly determined how disagreements spread and endured. Understanding all three together explains far more than any single cause alone. Which factor do you think mattered most, belief, power, or money? Share your answer in the comments. And if this documentary changed your perspective, please leave a like